welcome to FBC this morning. What a game yesterday. Bristol City 0, Coventry 2. We have lots to talk about. But before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to Liam Banks, the son of Ant Banks, 14 years old. I didn't realise that over the last few months he's been analysing me to great depth, and he's pointed out to his father that I look 10 years older after every defeat. So yes, I know I need a haircut, I know I'm a little bit lazy with shaving, but it's a bit harsh, Liam. You know, we all suffer a little bit, so if you could leave out the analysis, that would be great, thank you. Anyway, moving on. Today I'm joined by a new semi-debut. He's made a half-time appearance, but his full debut, Richard Angel. And I'm also joined by regular host David and Neil as well. So let's get down to business. Richard, how did you feel full-time yesterday?
I sat in the Dolman stand. So consequently, that meant I had to leave the game early, didn't it? That kind of sums everything up for me. Before the game, I parked down at Bedminster Cricket Club, and there was a couple of Coventry City fans trying to take a photo of the suspension bridge. And I said, yeah, that's the last time you're going to see that. And I reminded them of our infamous game back in the 70s where it was, I can't use the word fixed, can I? Where we both escaped relegation and Sunderland went down. And I did say to them, if you could just kind of keep your score down, I'd be very grateful. I felt that yesterday's game was so frustrating. It was a great opportunity after the Port Vale result for the team to put on a real display. And we were there when Sinclair Armstrong had a shot on goal in the first 5 minutes. And that kind of built my expectations. I felt that the first half, we showed some real glimpses. I felt the players were actually trying and putting a shift in. But I certainly came away from that game yesterday thinking, what an opportunity missed. We had Coventry down to 10 players. We had an opportunity to at least come away with a point, but really frustrated, really frustrated.
Neil, your thoughts?
First half, I felt that the attitude was pretty good. The application, not quite so. Sykes in particular got free a number of times on the right-hand side, completely wasteful. And his usual thing of blaming others for not making nonsensical runs or whatever like that with it. Some fiery tackles firing in, an unlucky yellow for Randall that came back to haunt us somewhat on a 50-50 challenge. But there's such a dearth in quality, wasn't there, yesterday? That was, particularly in the final third, we got into positions quite a lot in that first half, but absolutely no shots on target. So we'd done 100 in the first half. We'd done 105 minutes at Port Vale with one shot on target. We did the first half yesterday with no shots on target. There were times in that half where we were in the game. I thought Horvat played well, but defensively, Cam Pring, he's been a defender in the past. I've sung his praises in the past, but some of the setups yesterday were just wrong by Struber, and we'll get to him. Whether it's substitutions, whether it's formations, whether it's putting people in certain positions. Didn't see it myself, and I questioned Struber a bit yesterday, actually, in relation to it.
Okay, we will come to Struber for sure. David, the game itself, did it match your expectation? Did we play better than you expected?
I was tweeting on 45 seconds. I said, playing well, don't deserve to be behind to what was a sloppy goal. Horvat impresses more each game. Can we make the man advantage count? And literally, as I typed that, it's the post I've got on there, literally just as you see them score the second goal. Not after that, coming back from 0-2 down at half-time. I think if we'd have gone in at half-time 1-0 down, yes, we hadn't had any shots on target, but we were playing. We looked like we were up for it. They've moved the ball around better than we did, far more confident. Some of our players don't look confident on the ball at all. And Neil's already picked up on Cam Pring. He signed that contract in the summer. He's in a little bit of a comfort zone, I think, personally. You know, he's not busting a gut. I don't think so. And how I felt on the final whistle, I mean, I left after the 4th minute of time added on, just to get away from the traffic, because I parked around the back in Range Road, unusual for me. There weren't 24,000 people in the ground yesterday. There were certainly 3,500 Coventry fans, and more about that later as well. That end sucks, letting away supporters dominate that. But, you know, the season had gone anyway. And I texted our little WhatsApp group. I just said, I'm done with Struber when he took off. For the reasons that it's managing minutes, but he's taken Horvath off most games. And once he goes off, we seem to lose any form of creativity whatsoever. So disappointed. But as you've all said, first half, we did okay. And you think with a man advantage, we might go on and get it. Even at 2-0 with a man advantage, you're thinking, well, we get a goal, we might sneak it. But we didn't.
The thing about Horvath, I'll just say before come back to David, Horvath came on as a sub against Port Vale. So he hadn't done 120 minutes in the previous game in the midweek. Yeah. So you're managing minutes on somebody who's probably done
an hour.
You know, an hour, well,
hour and a half.
70 minutes, 80 minutes over 2 games. So
did you feel like the season was done before we started yesterday's game, though?
Who's that addressed to?
Richard.
To you, Neil. Sorry, to you.
To me. No, I didn't. I felt that there was still an opportunity there. Like Richard said, you know, we had an opportunity there to put a marker down, and sitting in the Robins before we said it would be very Bristol City to actually come back and actually win this game. You know, a game where you have expectations that they're not going to actually get anything at all, or Southampton, or Leicester, or a whatever. When we're playing the top teams, we have this knack of actually getting a result, in that situation, yeah. And then the excitement builds. Maybe we can do it, and then we fall down again in the next home game. But yesterday, I thought Coventry were missing Radoni badly. Yeah. The link-up play, the way he plays in the 10 for them. So I don't think they were particularly good, but they didn't have to be particularly good because we just gave them 2 goals.
And the second half was a disjointed mess. By the time
I get that. Richard, I haven't forgotten you. I just want to pick up on something David said before, and I think it's important we do it now. Do you think that there's a risk that you're falling into the trap that certain people are presenting, and by saying that you're done with Struber, you're kind of diluting the effect that the recruitment team and Tinian have had? Shouldn't they fall first before we get down to Struber? And by saying that, are you not playing into their hands?
Dave, I think you're right. But, you know, Tinian allegedly has gone off on holiday to Tenerife. Yeah. You know, the window's shut. He's bulletproof. So that's not going to happen. And I think it's highly feasible. If you look at the 2 games coming up this week, Leicester away, they're improving. They got a draw at Ipswich yesterday. Borough away, Tommy Conway's going to put one over on us at some point in time. We could easily lose the next 2. Then it becomes a vital game again. Well, it's not vital. It's vital for West Brom the following Saturday. But if we ran into the next 3 games coming out with 0 points, with an international break coming, you know, some people have said on the text feed here, you know, Struber's resigned in his head. Has Struber got the staying power? Yeah. And would he walk? Would he walk? Never mind him being pushed. But if he does, you know, then who's going to want to manage this football club under the direction of director of football, Brian Tinian, and with Lansdowne above him?
Okay, fair points. Now, Richard, opening 20 minutes of yesterday's game, there were some positives. By most people's considerations, we played well in that first half. To your mind, what were we doing well? Why were we ruffling Coventry slightly in the opening exchanges?
I think between the 10th and the 25th minute, we looked good. We looked okay. As you say, we were pushing back. We had a high press. They weren't quite sure what to make of Sinclair Armstrong, sorry. Reece was just passive in my view, but I felt that we had a very strong press and we had them on the back foot. That is until somebody quite clearly has given Jay Da Silva a video of John Barnes' goal against Brazil. But we'll come on to that, no doubt.
Sure.
Could I just pick up on the point that both David and Neil have made there about Struber, which is that he's checked out. And what I mean by that is that if you look at Struber's record, okay, Barnsley, he was there for 48 weeks. New York Red Bull, he was there for 134 weeks, but that's an anomaly. Red Bull Salzburg, 37 weeks. FC Cologne, 34 weeks. He's been at Bristol City 35 weeks. I feel there's a pattern that's developed here. He's got form for calling out owners when things are not going well. There was his infamous comments in October when he was at Barnsley. And I feel that we are the Tottenham Hotspur of the Championship. Everybody at the moment is saying that Spurs are too good to go down. They've got a great ground, wonderful training facilities, but they don't spend the right amount of money on players and wages. This year, clearly, we're not going down. But next year, I'm really concerned about this club.
Interesting. David,
Well,
do you agree with that?
Let me pick up on what Richard said there. I've been saying this all along. Well, not all along, but for the last few podcasts. If you look at our form, 34 games have produced 28 points. The first 12 produced 22. This is season 2021 all over again, where when Dean Holden was in charge, he got 23 points from those first 12 games, and Pearson came on. He won a couple back-to-back, Middlesbrough away, and I think it was Swansea away. But our form that season, we're in danger of replicating that form. And, Pearson turned it round. Pearson stabilised the ship. The one thing that Pearson did, no matter his detractors, and there's more people in favour, we avoided what normally happens when City have a reset is they go down and then they come back up. Pearson kept us up in this division. And the way things are looking at the moment, with Knight going, and I wouldn't be spending money on Knight if I was looking at him now in the summer anyway. He's not a fraction of the player we believe him to be. And if he's carrying this injury, but I think next season, it's going to be a relegation battle. But anyway,
here's the problem with that is that we have to trust the bulletproof one to turn the ship round. And just to bring it into the game itself, we opened quite well with the opening exchanges. 17th minute, Reece gets the ball out wide and fires it across the box. Armstrong has an instinctive choice to make. Attack the cross at the back post and make sure you're there. Maybe you get there, maybe you don't. Or literally do nothing and basically jog into the centre of the penalty box. He chose option 2. And that comes back to recruitment and not getting the centre forward we need. And that's my point around Struber. We can judge him on many actions he does, many technical things, but there is a forest fire surrounding this football club, and they must go before anything changes. And nothing will change with the next manager and the next manager, like Tottenham Hotspur are discovering. That's the issue, and it's almost becoming a cancer now, and they need to go. Anyway, back to the game itself. Randall's booking. David, Neil, what were your thoughts? Neil, you first. What did you think of that booking? Was it right? Was it even a foul?
This is the first one, isn't it?
I thought this is the first one, David, yeah?
The first one. The first one.
Okay, yeah. So I thought it was a 50-50. I thought Randall was a little bit hesitant into it, and then he hesitated, and then he went. I thought it was a 50-50 challenge, but I wasn't surprised when the ref gave him a yellow for it, because it probably looked far worse from the ref's position than it actually was. The ref was behind Randall, looking through a field of players, and you're looking at one player. Their player went about three or 4 feet up in the air. So Randall won the ball. It's the type of thing back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The whole crowd would have applauded, and the ref would have gone, play on, play on. Whereas nowadays, if you go into a tackle with any sort of force whatsoever, we've seen red cards this season in various EFL games whereby, if it was a straight red, I would have gone, what is the ref doing? But I wasn't surprised to see yellow.
David, do you agree with that? Do you think he lost control? Was it excessive force, or was it what was
No, it was a
necessary to
block
win the
tackle. I
ball?
mean, as Neil said, Jerry Gow used to do tackles like that every week. Even players, in more recent times. But the referees now, as I saw it, it was a 50-50 ball, and the referee deemed that Randall was the aggressor, which was a full-blooded challenge from both players. And the other guy came off worse. He continued for the rest of the game, I think, didn't he? Yeah. So it wasn't too bad. But referees and officials, they don't seem to like us. When we look at that penalty record, I find that an unbelievable statistic that I read this week, that we're bottom of the league since we last had a penalty, yet we're in the top 5 for touches in the box. Unbelievable. Yeah. Anyway, that's by the by. So it was
Ridiculous
a
at
yellow card.
times.
It was
Sure. So basically, we go through the first half. We have Knight has a long shot. We have a tight save from Vitek from, I believe it was from Clark, and then the first goal of the first half. Richard, it's your debut today. Talk us through the goal as you saw it.
I can't. It's just it's a summary of our season, isn't it? I mean, the one player in their team. I mean, apart from Jay Da Silva rising at a far post and heading the ball in, the one player you didn't anticipate dancing through our penalty area and creating an opportunity for Coventry to score. I mean, I literally couldn't believe it. My eye line was, I could actually see the movement in full flow. He had his dancing shoes on, and we did nothing. We did absolutely nothing to stop him. This is a guy that when he played for us, we were so frustrated that the way that opposition teams could beat us was to lob the ball over his head. We didn't do that. And then, even worse than that, we actually let him attack us. And he got into our penalty area. When did he ever do that when he was wearing a red shirt? Mm-hmm. I felt he looked embarrassed when they scored. So, sorry, didn't want to rant, but that to me was just an absolute summary of our season.
David, what was the bigger problem? Was it the drive into the box, or the fact that we have such a severe lack of header?
I'll tell you what it was. But before we say that, what was true, Jay Da Silva, was in the second half where, I was willing Coventry to get a third goal, actually, because we weren't going to score towards the end. And this episode's intro music, I've actually pre-recorded Tales of the Unexpected, in case we got that win that Neil alluded to, or toxic. It wasn't a toxic atmosphere yesterday. The Lansdowne family stayed away en masse. None of them were there in the director's box. Back to Jay Da Silva, though. He had a glorious chance to make it 3-0, and he did what Jay Da Silva did for us. He side-footed the ball wide when even I could have tapped that one in. But getting back to it, the goal, Richard said it sums up the season. For me, we weren't clearing our lines, and they were pressing hard, and the number of little triangles that we were doing. And whilst we did eventually clear it, I think it was probably after we'd done a triangle and we do the usual long ball, which surrenders possession anyway. Yeah. They came swarming towards us, and it was badly defended. I said that both goals were soft goals, and we've lost, whereas we were good at the back and questionable at the front. We're conceding soft goals at the moment, and that was one.
Neil, what of Vitek? Could he have done better there, or is it just it's a really difficult thing from close range, and it's a hard one for a keeper?
Well, if I deconstruct the goal a little bit from a footballing perspective, if I was taking my team, Reece miscontrol, bad miscontrol. It's his first touch yesterday. The ball was getting played into him and it was bouncing off. It's like playing him and Armstrong yesterday. We're taking about 3 or 4 touches each time to actually control the ball. And he loses the ball and then he tries to win it back, but then he sort of gives up on it a little bit. And then you've got Sykes on the right, who is never the best defender in the world. But culpable for me is Pring at the back post on the cross. because that's hung up. And normally, as an ex-defender myself, and if Thomas was here, he'd tell you from a defender's perspective, you open up your body, that back post, because otherwise, if your body positioning, Pring does not have a clue that guy, Sakamoto's coming in on a diagonal. Not a clue. He's static. He reminds me of McCrory a little bit with his defensive headers, because McCrory does not attack defensive headers at all. McCrory is static. Defensively, he just annoys. Offensively, yeah, he attacks it. It's a type of goal we wouldn't have conceded with Atkinson as in that position, because Atkinson would have opened up his body and been aware of the guy coming in on the jump. I don't think Vitek, from 6 yards out, it's down low. It's always a thing when you've got a 6'6", 6'7" keeper. They're going to be great saving, apart from if they have to get down very quickly down low like that. It's one of the things of having a giant keeper. They're not going to actually keep it. But this poor defensively on the right-hand side to just allow him to skip through without a challenge. Poor from Pring at the back post.
I get that. And David, Neil hit something. If Atkinson wasn't there, currently we have a 24-man squad, including McNally, who's probably not going to play this season. What's the thinking in essentially leaving two positions open and not having sufficient cover at the back, so then we concede goals like that? What are the recruitment team and Tinian thinking in leaving us in that kind of position?
Well, look, what are they thinking? He could have recalled Knight LaBelle from Swindon for a starter, just to shore it up. Because
we spoke about it in January.
Yeah,
it was spoken about.
I mean, the other youngster, promising defensive youngster, is it Campbell Slowey? He's still injured, isn't he? Yes, because his name doesn't get mentioned at all. But we had it in our hands, and as Tom of Robin's Nest said, yesterday the Lansdowns weren't there, and our technical director wasn't there. Well, that just about sums that shit show up at the end of the day, doesn't it? Because they knew. I think they stayed away because they knew that if it went bad, and because we put in a decent performance, that's why it didn't get toxic. People voted with their feet if you looked at how many seats were empty by the end of the game. But you're right, Dave, the recruitment, it's going from, it's not planned, it's not considered. Yeah. And this week, I think Gerhard made the comment that Nigel said, you better ask the management. It's not my department type of thing. And you alerted me just before that Dan Carter in Bristol Live has said that in his interview with Struber, he's already said now the window could be better. But then what is Struber doing? Praising Delano Burzorg is, I've got my striker. And then this week he said, oh, well, he's not really a striker. He's a 10.
David, you know exactly what he's doing. He was being to a man, I need you to score goals. And what else do you want him to say? Here's my guy that rejected us twice and finally comes at the end of the month. Or would you prefer him to say, here's the guy with a terrible goal scoring record that I'm now relying on to save the season? Of course he's going to big it up. The fact is that when he was asked the question directly, what is he? He was clear. And that is a damning indictment of the people behind the scenes at this football club. Struber's not perfect. We're going to get to that in the second half of things that we won't like. But the failure of that first goal, Neil hit it on the head. We have actual defenders in the box. We don't concede. And that's the thing that we need to be really aware of when we're criticising an in-game stuff. The context does matter. Moving on. Richard, the red card. Talk me through it as you saw it.
Justified as far as I was concerned. My view was slightly interrupted because I had a couple of people behind me who kept uttering the phrase, you are doing so well, you have passed the ball. And I thought we'd recalled somebody with an injury from Hull City, to be honest. So from my perspective, I felt it was a justified red card, bearing in mind that we'd had at least two decisions go against one of them, and I felt one of them was a Stonewall penalty, I'll be honest. So, yes, it was a justified decision, in my opinion. And then to go in at half-time, 1-0 down against 10 players, I felt we had an opportunity.
What of Neil? What of Reese's reaction to that red card? Because he basically creates the situation with the press that he brings on. Was that kind of a reflection of how we approached that first half? And did you have any queries about the red card, or did you think it was the correct decision?
I think it was 100% the correct decision. I mean, the stupid issue with the commentary player is that the way Reece was breaking that entire game. There was no reason to do it because he probably would have outpaced Reece anyway. I wouldn't have put money on Reece actually doing anything if he got past him, really. So I think in retrospect, you 1-0 up, you're very comfortable in the game. If you're Frank Lampard and you see your defender doing that, you're like, what's the worst that could happen? They go and score, right, we're level, we reset, we go again. You put yourself down to 10 men in that situation. But as a defender, you don't, and the last man and the centre back of the three, you're not thinking, are you? And he wasn't thinking. So his natural inclination was, I've made a rig, I need to sort it out. It's a clear red. But thereafter, can I just go back to the Jay De Silva point a moment that Richard made as well? Jay De Silva yesterday did not have a good game for me. Other than that, the assist for it. In the first half, Sykes got free on that right-hand side about 3 or 4 times with the, complete freedom of Ashton Gate. And some of it was absolutely awful. Now, that's Jay De Silva's side. So, I don't think he had a particularly good game. And as David alluded to, that chance in the second half as well. I don't think many of Coventry, for me, were above a 6 yesterday. Matt Grimes was... They didn't have to be. They didn't have to be because they didn't have to actually extend themselves. There were times when we were 10 versus 10 in that game, they were sitting so deep. I was like, do we actually have an extra man? Oh, no, we don't. It's still 10 versus 10. They just like, we'll just hit them. They were so comfortable without
They won both boxes, and everything else is propaganda in football. The 2 boxes is where it counts, and that's where they won yesterday's game. And sometimes football is as simple as that, I think.
Yeah.
David, how did you think we reacted post red card, between the red card and going 2 behind? How did you think we reacted in that mini period? Of 2 minutes, by the way, so it's a tight question. Right. Well, it wasn't very long.
Not really long enough to give a definitive view on it. I mean, I think Neil made a point that if Reece had, if it had been allowed to play on, Reece probably would have run out of steam. And as somebody's put on the text feed here, then Reece, the goalkeeper for Coventry, who played quite well yesterday, saved some good Rushworth. He kept them in the game up at their Rico Arena back in December. Would Reece have scored? He might have done, and it was a long way from goal. I think he was taken out just inside the centre circle. So, how did we react? In the 2 minutes, I didn't see us seem to take advantage of it, and I thought, well, if we get in the halftime 1-0, we're going to make a fist of it in the second half, but we didn't, and you'll come on to the second goal.
And that's the big frustration there, isn't it? And the goal itself, I'll have the honours this time because I feel like just really going at recruitment today. First of all, the ball goes long. Ayla loses the first aerial duel. Pring loses the second aerial duel. Borges is the left centre-back that people don't actually want to play in that position and shouldn't be there, then loses his personal battle. 3 battles lost in a row, all avoidable if only we got some aerial players in the window. Thank you very much, recruitment. Neil, your thoughts on the second goal?
Eel is an interesting one. He's a decent footballer, but I don't think aerially he likes it. I think in the air, he's 6'5", and there was a couple of times where he's letting the ball bounce rather than heading it. And some of his, look, as an ex-defender myself, and again, if Thomas was here, he'd wax lyrical. Pring, you do not head the ball while you're off balance towards your own goal. Head it away from the goal, whether it's over to the corner flag, behind, whatever. Do not head it. He had no idea where that ball was going, Pring. And then, quite frankly, Borges just misses the ball. But then, beforehand, Hadj Wright had a shot which Vitek had saved, where he just shoved Borges off the ball. So you could tell physically Borges playing as a left centre back, he's just not physically strong enough to actually play as a left centre back.
Not at all.
Exactly. And Pring wasn't having a great game on the left. I would have moved Pring into the left centre back, and physically would have been better, and Borges out on the left wing back.
Or really. Even having Naylor.
Well, Naylor's a young lad. I mean, this is the problem with the club at the moment. we've got nobody in the academy, this vaulted academy. If Tinian wants to come on and actually keep singing the praises of the academy, where is the academy now? Where are the under-21s? We're buying players in to be in our under-21s. That's where we are. That's how far we've lost.
Young and Naylor, you mean, in particular? Randall Young. Did he come to us in the
Young, Naylor, bloody Reece Knight coming in from Ireland as well. You know, we've got some decent under-18s. They're all out on loan. Ruben Shepherd and Skinner out of Bath. You've got Pakova over in Western. You know, so they're 18, they're 17, 18. The under-21s, where we should be looking to actually, okay, we've got some injuries at the back. Who are we bringing in? We're not. We're playing fullbacks in centre-back positions, and it just shows game in, game out with regards to it. Pring has at least showed some attribute at left centre-back before. And physically, he's better than, you know, Borges in that position. And when you're up against Hazrai, the warnings were there with Borges and Hazrai beforehand, because they went through and it was a one-on-one. He just put a hand out and shoved him off, and he went flying. And then it was a good save by Vitek down to the left-hand side. But throughout it all, the game management, swapping players around, and then we'll get to the Randall second yellow, because that just does my head in, the Randall second yellow.
David, the goal itself, what did you think of, first of all, Wright's part in it, and second of all, Borges' reaction, as Katie's just pointed out afterwards? Is that not a frustrating running theme that we seem to be showing extra fight when football's not actually taking place, rather than like that kind of aggression during the actual match? Is that not a cause for concern right now? Because it's happened multiple times.
Look, it's happened multiple times, and if you look, the goal that Port Vale scored, Borges and Pring, their body positions are all wrong, just the way they're lining up for it. The commentator said, what was Pring trying to do for the Port Vale goal? You know, trying to get it on his left when you could have cleared it with his right. And yesterday, it was a shambolic second goal. And as for Borges' reaction, I mean, the good news is, correct me if I'm wrong, that next week at the Riverside Stadium, part of the loan deal is that neither Borges or Turdzorg, as somebody's called him here, he's not wrong, neither of those are allowed to play in that game. Yeah. So, no, I mean, at 2-0 down, just after that second goal, I think it was as well, or just before, Pring, they were trying to do stuff on the left touchline in front of the lower Lansdowne in front of me, and Pring the ball just ran away from him. He was crap yesterday. He's really, really poor. And I just don't think he's on his game, regardless of whether Neil says he could play better at left centre-back. It's bad. And it ain't going to change between now and the end of the season. You know, and there's some tough games coming up. You know, I'm questioning how many more points. We've got 10 games to go.
Yeah.
I'm questioning how many points. We're not going to match last season's total. That's a definite. And I said on X yesterday, I'm predicting a final end of season finish of 16.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
Joyce. So, moving into the second half, we Twine for Pring. Then, opening 10 minutes, you've got a case of trying to make a few bits and pieces. 53rd minute, Sykes goes down. Richard, from where you were, do you think it was a penalty?
Yes.
Why?
Nothing else to say. Absolutely. Well, it wasn't Twine. Okay. So this unfortunate distinction we hold of not having had a penalty for, well, is it now approaching Pearson record levels? I don't know. But absolutely, that was a stonewall penalty decision. I don't understand why we didn't get that decision.
Neil, can you make any case for the defence of why it wasn't given as a penalty? Is there any rhyme or reasoning? Because from where I was in a special camera position, it looked like a pretty clear penalty.
I think Sykes and Twine, who predominantly are the people who get into those positions that are fouled, tend to act like they've been shot and throw themselves up in the air, whether it's a foul or not. The way that their body language, they normally shout out, they normally throw themselves around a bit. And I just don't think they're particularly convincing in that situation. I mean, going back to Twine, I'm sure the refs are there thinking Twine's going to try and get one over on us to get a free kick or whatever. So he just doesn't get the fouls. Half the time he's fouled and he just doesn't get the decisions. Sykes, he's just an annoying player in that. You know, he's a bit of a gobby Irishman who moans at everybody throughout the game for his own failings at the end of the day, and then throws himself up in the air. I've no doubt he was actually fouled, but he went down like he'd been shot by a machine gun at 10 yards. And in that situation, the ref's going to be like, God, I don't need the amateur dramatics on it. And there is a reason why we don't get penalties. Reputations of certain players. That's what it boils down to.
Do you agree with that, David? That we have a reputation?
Look, I mean, the comments coming up on the text feed here, you know, all modern footballers go down the same way and get penalties. We don't. I don't think the powers that be in the game, like Bristol City, never mind fans mocking us for Bristol City being the underachieving side that they are, we don't get anything going in our favour. You know, when was the last? I think Millwall last season had about 8 or 9 penalties through the season. We haven't had that many penalties in the last 10 years. Be interesting to see how many penalties we've had in the 10 years that we've been in this division. But was it a pen? I looked when I saw the dramatics and I thought, oh, it's not Twine, it's Sykes has done it, and it was right down the far end. For us, it's the far corner of the south stand penalty area, so I wouldn't say one way or another whether it was, but form dictates that we don't get them. You know, somebody would have to be literally shot to get a penalty.
I'm not even sure if then we'd get it, to be honest. It would probably be a booking for a dive or something ridiculous. I understand, you know, some of them are not always penalties, but I think we've had enough of that look like penalties in recent weeks that to not even get one of them is pretty shocking, to be honest. Now, moving on to the second yellow of Randall. David, I'll start with you. When did it become a thing that you've got to take your player on a booking off so early in the second half? Or is context important in the situation? Talk us through that second yellow for Randall as you saw it.
Okay, well, in terms of when does it become a thing to take players off, you've got to look at it from sometimes that second yellow card is in the head. Yeah. So the player's got a tough temperament. If it's a forward and he's already got a yellow card, he's probably more likely to get sent off for a second yellow card for dissent or something silly like that. Melanie came with me to the game first time yesterday, and she was really impressed with Randall. She thought he was getting everywhere, putting himself about, and, you know, Jason Knight isn't the Jason Knight we've known. And that was a full-blooded challenge from him that went in at chest height. That challenge gave the referee no option but to do it. When you're in the middle of the park, you're going to be doing those challenges. The first half yellow card, whilst it was, to me, a 50-50 ball, it was still one that caused the player to be on the ground for 3 minutes. Yeah, so in the referee's mind, it's the same player going in for a robust challenge. Whether he should have been taken off, it's a good question, because we had players on the bench that could have come on. Morsey could have come on and played that role. Bird, if I recall correctly, was warming up for quite a few minutes, ready to come on before that incident took place. So is it a thing? Caution would have said you do it, but, you know, Randall's not a dirty or aggressive player. He was just victim of what had happened in that first instance.
He kind of did it to himself with his own miscontrol, which allowed it to go loose in the first place. Neil, Richard, sorry, I'll come to you this time. Something that struck me was instantly Coventry had 5 or 6 players around the referee, remonstrating with him, right on him instantly. Hypothetically speaking, if it's the other way around, do you think that we do the same? Do you think that we're on the referee that quickly?
We come back to a common thread, don't we, gentlemen? Bristol City are very nice. We're very nice. The nearest we've got to breaking out of that was when we had a gentleman in charge of the team, Mr. Nigel Pearson. He identified that early on. We're very nice. I think that, look, I don't condone that behaviour, but it is a situation of, if everybody else is doing it, we should be trying to influence the referee's decision. There's nothing against the rules that says we can't do that. And certainly, where it's a borderline decision, let's call it out. Let's gain a critical advantage. I mean, if you look back to the sending off of the Coventry player, he went down the tunnel, he got a pat on the back from Lampard, and Lampard knew that they weren't going to be in trouble. For us, that was a massive decision. Any opportunity we had at that point to try and claw our way back into the game had gone. And then it was just a question of, could we keep the Coventry score down to 3 or 4 at that point, for me, to be honest?
I see.
I felt they were going to run away with it.
Now, Neil, before we went live, you gave me a certain take on it about what was happening on the sideline with management, etc. Talk us through the red card and what was happening before it, and how Struber could have avoided that second yellow.
Oh, with regard to Bird warming up to actually come on anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, For me, we're 2-0 down, Dave. Half time, they're down to 10 men as well. All the subs are on the pitch warming up. But and I'm thinking, what, we're going to go here? We're going to be brave? Are we going to do 2 or 3 substitutions? And throughout the course of this season, some of Struber's substitutions, he talks about bravery and he talks about, the chaos ball and everything. But he doesn't go, the Watford game, case in point, 1-1, point is not going to move us forward in the playoffs. Go for the 3, be brave, go for the 3. Just like who were Hull playing yesterday?
Millwall.
And he put 3 1-1, Alex Neil put 3 forwards on. And he went for it because he knows those 2 points, whatever. So yesterday we bring Twine on for Pring, who was having a shocker. But really, Bird, if you've got Knight and Randall, they're doing essentially the same job.
Yeah.
So why not bring Bird on at half time? He's looking to do it in the half, but the timing of his substitutions and the way he goes light for light sometimes. When we're chasing a game, he'll take Reese off for Sinclair and play the one up top, or he ends up playing Earthy on the right wing back and Birdsall playing wide left. I don't get it. Taking Horvat off.
Well, Richard said once Randall went off on 56 minutes, we'd lost the midfield battle because Jason Knight is not half the player he was last season.
Well, he's injured, David, isn't he?
Well, he's injured because he's trying to save himself for the
that player.
But let me just say, look, once you lost Randall with the red card, and then took Horvat off as well, that just totally finished it, didn't it? Because if you say a straight swap, if you look at the players that we had available on the day, ignoring the sending off, but you do not weaken the side by taking Randall off and bringing Bird on, and if you want to put an extra man in midfield, you leave Horvat on there, and you've got. Well, I'm looking at the bet. He got it wrong, and somebody said, Bagel said on here, TalkSport said his subs gave Coventry control back. He got that all wrong.
And if we go back to the window, the point that Dave made about the window, every other club in January, if you're going to bring a loan in, a loan player who's going to be better than what you have, who's going to make you a better team. Our loans came in, the 2 loan guys, they're on the bench. Earthy hasn't even been playing on occasion, hasn't even got into the 20.
Yeah.
Is Birdsall or Earthy better than our first 11? No, it's not. So what's the point getting the loans in at the end of the day? And if you're going to get a loan in,
this was on OTIB, Bergzorg, right? Somebody said Bergzorg left the game yesterday in a Lamborghini, right? That's his car. He's on bloody 20 grand a week. I would sooner see 2 kids like Peckover and Skinner given 45 minutes each. They're not going to get muscled off the ball any more than some of our so-called experienced players are. So Go on, sorry, Dave.
They're going to say that's one of the issues, though, isn't it? Like they're bringing on players like Sims in the second half. We don't have that luxury. And it actually moves me on nicely to the three subs that we made in the 62nd minute. Bird for Sinks, which I don't think many people will have complaints for. Sinks seems to have a good 30 minutes and then he's kind of done. You know, you have Urfi for Sykes, which is just basically rotation. And then the one which is going to lose a lot of people and divide a lot of how people feel about Struber. Bergzorg for Horvat. The boos, you could hear them.
Yeah.
That is the art of losing a fan base from a manager. Even if there's context, which we'll talk about in a minute, but first I'll get your guys' thoughts on it. Richard, what did you think of that substitution?
Well, I've got good news for everybody, okay? As I was leaving the game early yesterday, I found a book on Winterstoke Road. It's actually called Gerhard Struber's Book of Substitutions, the Master Plan. I found this on the road. You'll love it. There's only one problem. It's empty. There's nothing in it, guys. There's absolutely nothing in it, okay? Look, I'm going to do something for the kids now. As Jay-Z said, we got 99 problems, but I'm telling you, the fans ain't one. We have got an issue with a manager with his in-game management. He does not get it. We've been here before, haven't we? This is not our first rodeo. Anybody remember that manager that we had, like last season? We used to be able to set our clocks on the 60th minute, didn't we?
Yeah.
We'd get a substitution. Oh, I wonder if it's Manning executing his horseshoe version 2 plan. We've now gone to the other extreme. Horvat, what were you thinking? I mean, sorry, I'm on my soapbox now, aren't I? But what were you thinking, man? You have taken off the only threat that we had to try and get some kind of respectability from that game. Stupid decision. You can't defend it.
Okay, well, I'm going to try. This is my moment to shine and defend it, and then I'll give it to the proclaimers to tell me why I'm wrong. So, if you look at it, right, Horvat's played 60 minutes. He's come from a new league. Again, recruitment's put him in a position where he had to hit the ground running and never stop. It's not supposed to be like that with a new signing. Ideally, you like to ease them in. He's been playing consistent amount of games and coming off pretty early in most games with good reason. Why would you want to risk essentially your biggest asset going into next season? Obviously, you want to chase that game and win that game, but that's in isolation. The season was already done. We're not touching the playoffs because we don't have the defence to do it. The decision was already made. We've got Bergzorg. We need to know if he's actually any good or not. We've made the decision he's not. But if you're going to find out, you have to give him time. I do not want to see in a game like yesterday Horvat going to the 80th minute, getting injured, and then being out for 6 months. This season is done in terms of going up. Going into next season being ready is more important. The proclaimers, tell me why I'm wrong.
Go on, Neil.
He came on in the 61st minute against Port Vale in midweek, David. He's come from the Austrian league where he's been playing all the time. He's match fit. Okay. Setting aside, he's new to the team. You're not talking about a guy coming back from a long-term injury. You're not talking about a guy who hasn't played. Eel went 4 months before he's been playing. He hasn't played since September, the MLS season. Horvat is no different to an English player that we would have signed in a January window from another club. Would we be managing their minutes as well?
Yeah.
So he played 30. He came on 61 minutes against Port Vale. So he only did 60 minutes there. And I don't see it. You're chasing a game. Your season's on the line. You get 1 goal back yesterday. You might get a second like we did against Leicester. You don't know unless you're brave in that situation, unless you roll the dices. Or the dice singular, whichever way you want to approach it, it's a negative decision, isn't it? And the players on the pitch are just going to look at that and go, "You're taking off our best." Oh right, we conceded. Should we just finish the game now? And everybody in the stands just went, right, that's the game over then, isn't it? And we still had like half an hour of the game with all the injury time to go. I mean, what's the point, Dave?
You've never heard of
protecting a player when you're 2-0 down and
yeah.
it's a game that you really need to get something from.
But what I'm saying is wait. If you look at Horvat's season so far of playing for us, he's played since Hull. He played 79, 63, 56. He played 90 versus Blackburn. Then he played 84. Then he's played 60 against Port Vale. It wasn't a free hit in midweek. Then he's played 60 again. Isn't there something to be said for protecting your players? And when Struber was asked this morning or yesterday, why did you bring him off? His comment was, it's about protecting the load. You can disagree with it or hate it, but it wasn't Struber going, you know what? I'm going to put Horvat, I'm going to bring Horvat off and put Borgzorg on just for a laugh. He was doing it because of the load management. You can agree with it or disagree with it, but there's reasoning there. Now, David, just to ask you a question to let you speak, it's not just a defence, but it's the strikers too. You put to me yesterday when the sub was made, I'm done with Struber. What was it about that substitution that put you over the edge?
For the very thing that, to me, he's been playing very, very well since he came in, right? I disagree with saving him for minutes and managing minutes, because on that basis, he could. Why is he playing Eala every minute of every game when he could?
Because he's a defender and he has no choice. It's not the same.
He could. He's got Ross McCrory. Is he? No, sorry. All right.
He's got no one. Do you think he wants to play him there every single game? A new centre-back coming into the league. There's a reason we're not keeping clean sheets.
No, Dave, look, you're right. I'm done with Struber because I just think we've given him a lot of... That summed it up, the substitution. I take your point. I can see what you're saying. And you could say that he's managing the minutes of Twine because, I think where you're wrong, Dave, is saying about saving things for next season. Because on that basis, are there other players?
Not saving, developing is the difference. You want to go, because this season is finished. We're not going to hit the playoffs.
Yeah.
That anger in that substitution, I completely get it. And yesterday I felt exactly the same. When it happened, I was absolutely fuming. But when you take a step back and you say, hold on a minute, we're not touching the playoffs this season. I don't want Horvat getting injured in that last half an hour. I want him to hit the ground and be on fire going into next season.
That could happen in any game, David.
Of course it can, but look,
though, isn't it? I mean,
look what happened with Jason Knight. How often did we speak about Jason Knight at the start of the season playing too much time, and then guess what? He got injured and he hasn't been the same player since. Sometimes you have to step away. He didn't play 30 minutes in midweek. He played half an hour. He played 60 and 60. Sometimes you have to protect these players.
If you're on about management, why keep Randall on a yellow card? That's game management, isn't it? Bring Bird on at half time.
Absolutely.
And then you change the dynamic of the game, and then you don't take the risk, and then you think, right, okay, I'm going to manage this. And actually, what's the point keeping Randall and Knight on? They're both similar players, aren't you? If you're going to be more progressive in the second half, you bring Bird on because Bird's going to find those pockets of space. He's going to have some shots. He's going to be a very different player in that situation. That is bravery. But that is managing the situation. Horvat, for me, 63rd minute. You're 2-0 down. You're chasing the game. He's your most likely person to get back into the game. What, do we just say, I've got to manage his minutes, that's it, stuff it, we concede the game? You take off your best.
Of course you don't concede the game, but again...
I get it at 85. I get it at 85. I don't get it at 63.
Well, I get it at 75 to 8.
No, but
the game, he was surrendering the game. He was surrendering the game at that point, bringing on a player by his own admission in Bergzorg. Yeah, okay, Bird came on anyway. We're down to 10, but he's already said Bergzorg needs to learn how we play. His interview was very enlightening before the game in terms of the attributes of Bergzorg, and that Bergzorg, needs to learn a lot. What, you bring in a bloody player, coming back to recruitment, Dave, to get onto your hobby horse, you're bringing in a player that was recruited in the summer, and we still went after him, like we did with Earthy. Earthy was bloody lazy recruitment in the summer, just to appease the fan base, I think, because he's offered nothing. Was anybody actually going, we need George Earthy back? No.
I don't agree it's appeasing the fan base, because I just don't see
No,
it.
well, we got a player in through the door. I don't think it was appeasing. It was appeasing their own ego that we've been active in the market.
Just to come back on something, and Richard, I'll give you the final say on Horvat. The Randall situation, there is an element of that which I think is true, in that we sometimes differ and delay when it comes to substitutions. We're not rapid enough, and I don't necessarily agree that you just take a yellow card player off, but if you're going to make that move, be quicker about it. And I think the two things come together, and you get a yellow card yesterday. In terms of the Horvat sub, I genuinely think it's a case of there's a massive forest fire, and we are essentially blaming the animals for making wrong choices and dying. He's been given absolutely no help. He's been given nothing. It's not Struber's fault that Earthy's not good enough and Bergzorg's not good enough. We are essentially complaining that we've got a select group of players that's very small, and if he does anything to bring them off the pitch, that's it. And we've got to play them over and over and over and over and over and over again until they get injured. Richard, tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay. There are 5 problems why we're in this predicament. I won't go through them now, perhaps do them in a minute or two because you're still in your game mode, okay? But Horvat, if this is about managing minutes, if this is about developing and creating partnerships, why start him? Why don't you just bring him on after 60 minutes if you want to preserve him?
Because you're playing 1 and 2 up top.
Well, I think the reality is we've now got ourselves in a real pickle. This one isn't on Struber. This one is not on Struber. This is on Brian Tinian and recruitment. Full stop. Okay. So I take you back to Little Lee. Do you remember we used to have clubs in the bag, didn't we? Yeah. We could probably field a team of number 10s. Yeah. What on earth have we done with our recruitment this year? You know, Twine, Earthy, Bulldog, Horvat. I mean, we got Hirakawa. You know, he's out the door at the moment. We have got so many number 10s. The recruitment is the cause. The symptom is what Struber is trying to do. Even accepting his poor, weak judgment on in-game management. I think the guy is a great coach, but his in-game management is a problem. And that's magnified because of the, piss poor recruitment this club has gone through.
Sure. Now, well, I think we'll put that one in the books. I think everyone's heard what we have to say, and they'll agree with some of us or they won't. Just to summarise the game, because we knocked at the door without necessarily, looking like we're going to break it down. Neil, what did you think of their keeper's performance yesterday, and specifically the save from Twine right at the end?
Look, he is by far and away the best keeper in the division. His stats, his analysis, Rushworth on loan from Brighton. He's a very, very good Premiership keeper. Vitek made a few saves for us yesterday as well. I'm sure the Coventry fans were actually thinking, particularly that second half, it could have been a lot worse, couldn't it? In that second half. Sure. And he made some saves as well. Vitek's had a good season for us. Rushworth's had an exceptional season for them. But it just shows, doesn't it? You don't get promoted without a decent keeper, I think, in this situation. And last season with Max, he's an average Championship keeper, as West Brom are finding out. We've had Vitek is probably early on, particularly the first 12 games, won us a few games at the end of the day and won us a few points that thankfully we had in the bank, not like, as you say, the Holden season when Nigel came in. Rushworth, he's not the biggest keeper in the world, but he's a shot stopper, isn't he? And his agility at the end of the day, and that was a fantastic save by Twine, albeit in injury time where it just would have been a consolation. But I think there's a unit there at the back, and they were missing a few yesterday. Bobby, what's his name? The ex-Gas player, the centre back, who they picked up. Bobby. They're missing their main centre back yesterday. They still, as a team, know what they're doing defensively. I don't think we do, really. And the amount of crosses that came in yesterday, particularly in the second half of Bolton, we never looked like scoring, did we? I mean, our cross completion rate must have been absolutely woeful. Maybe I'll go and have a look at it in a moment and have a little cry in the corner on our cross. We could have hit that ball in all day, every day from both sides, never finding the players, never finding them, really. And it was poor. You know, we got to the final third yesterday. They allowed us the space all day on the width, knowing that they could hit the balls in, and they had utter confidence in their back line to actually just get with it. So Rushworth, in answer to your question, fantastic keeper. He was fantastic up there for them. Won them game up there in the 1-0 win. And didn't have anything to do first half, but when he needed to be called upon second half, he was again at his very high levels.
David, do you think we made him needed to be called upon enough, and that's a tongue twister to try and say? What were your thoughts of how we approached that second half?
I mean, look, and we're not praising Nigel here, Nigel Pearson. I'm going to say there were a few games under Pearson during his reign where in the second half we ended up with 4 forwards on the front line. We looked a bit of a mess. And as the game, when you bring on Sam Bell comes on for Reece, I think it was late on, and you're thinking, oh my God, you know, that's really going to frighten the pants off them. But the keeper did well. I just want to say about the keeper, I was chatting to did a match preview with a Coventry boys of all things Sky Blue, and we were talking about goalkeepers. And Rushworth is on loan from Brighton. He's likely to be Brighton's first choice goalkeeper next season, they were saying. And I said to them, well, we'd love to keep Vitek. But if Man United wanted to loan out Vitek to a Premier League club where he would play week in, week out, then I could see, or not if, when Coventry get promoted, you could well see Radek Vitek being their first choice goalkeeper next season if Rushworth does go back to Brighton. I'd love to keep Vitek here. I think we have hope, because he's going to play week in, week out for us if he is here. But if Rushworth goes, I could see somebody like Vitek being a good goalkeeping choice for them. They'd like to keep Rushworth. So is Rushworth a better keeper than Vitek? Neil's saying yes, but I don't know. But we tested him. Lesser keepers would have let that go in. But you know, it was a mess at the end. I said again, I tweeted that on the final whistle. We just looked disjointed and crosses going in. Neil's just got the stats here on Flash Score, and our cross completion
crosses
rate.
6 of 41.
41
crosses, 6 completion out of 41
What
crosses.
constitutes a completion on that then, Neil?
Us winning the header.
Right.
Or us winning the ball. Wow. Corner kicks yesterday. We had 11 corner kicks, David. How many did we try and play short the whole time? I have no idea.
Oh, that was ridiculous.
How many short free?
And they still whack it in. It's sort of tip tap, whack.
We'd lose the ball over in the far corner. It'd go out for a throw in or whatever like that.
We had 11. We had 11.
There was one particular short corner.
They had 3. If you think about it, they had 2 chances that were. Yeah, they converted their chances because we didn't give them that much.
That's it, David. We lost both boxes.
Didn't have a lot to do.
We won the propaganda war, but we lost both boxes, and that's how you lose a football match. There was one particular corner we had where we tried to be a bit smart, and Twine tried to flick it round the back, and it ended up on a break for them, and they almost scored from it. But I feel like that's the game done. Some additional points looking forward and about bits and pieces. David, one of your favourite points, the away end. What can be done about it? What should be done about it? Is it okay to make money and have a full away end like that? How do we approach that going forward? I mean, we want to create a kind of atmosphere that is intimidating. Did you feel like it was intimidating yesterday, having such a large away end in behind one?
I thought it was intimidating for us, to be honest. I tweeted before the game. I did an 18-second little video, which has had about 40,000 views on there and 40 comments. You know, I mean, in the second half, they didn't make the most of it in the second half. They didn't put, as Neil said earlier in the pod, they were sat back even at 10 minutes. They didn't have to do anything. They did not have to step up a gear because, like us, they're playing on Tuesday, or maybe they're playing on Wednesday. I don't know. To me, it's very simple how you solve the away problem or surrendering that end. You give them half of that end, and that's the Dolman stand side, and then you make the away fans access, you give the away fans blocks A and B in the dolmen. Now, the only people that are inconvenienced by that are the Bristol City fans that are in blocks A, B, C, D, E, F that go into the dolmen from Greville Smythe Road. But if you make that corner of the ground for the away supporters, because at the moment, all the away supporters are funneling in by the players' entrance, the main entrance in. If you just push them to that side of the ground, right, you don't have that problem. Blocks A and B of the dolmen, people that say put them in the upper Lansdowne, that's bloody crazy because they're just lob meat pies down. It will happen 2 or 3 times, right? But that wall of sound that they were making, I'm thinking, goodness me, that's an advantage. And we don't need to, it used to be Fortress Ashton Gate. We've lost bloody 8 home games this season and we're not done yet. Could we get into double figures of losing home games? I think we jolly well could between now and the end of the season. 10 home losses in one season.
And we
Richard,
didn't
do you
help
think it makes a
ourselves.
difference?
Sorry.
Do you think it makes a difference?
Richard.
I was going to say we didn't help ourselves. I mean, the club on Friday put something out on X, didn't they, saying, "Can you give us your song choices for the game?" And look, we all piled in, didn't we? I went with Low with Blur, but for goodness' sake, we played Gold. All right, I know that's our song, but did you hear the Coventry fans singing it?
Yeah.
We made it easy for them. We made it easy. Not only, David, taking your point, which I 100% agree with, by the way, we made it easy. We created the environment and the atmosphere for them to be louder than us.
Yeah.
Cool. Neil, where do we go from here? Looking forward, what needs to happen to turn this around, to create some positivity again? Because season ticket requests are going to come out pretty soon. So where does the club, where do we go from here?
That's a big question, Dave, isn't it? That is a big question. I think over the years there's been a 50-50. We have to be careful when we go on OTIB or we do podcasts that we don't have confirmation bias, that we just think the general fan base is all aligned and has one thought. I think over the years it's about 50-50. Generally, people saying the Lansdowns, be careful what you wish for. They've done so much for the club, all the rest of it. I think personally now, after the January window, after those interviews he did, I think there's a giant swing against the Lansdowns. I think most people, even neutrals from the past, are probably of the view that, when he did that interview and we were 6th or 7th in the division and we were talking about the Semenyo money, and he went, well, obviously the Semenyo money is going to cover the losses. And you're like, well, the losses are going to happen next season, Steve. When are you actually going to invest at any stage? The losses are going to be there regardless. You either twist in this situation or you don't. And then he starts ridiculing the CEO. And I really like Tom Rawcliffe. I know David's met him a number of times. And I thought he was a real positive for the club. And he's obviously binned him. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. It's almost like the Conservative MP resigning to spend more time with the family nonsense, isn't it? Nobody actually believes that nonsense, really. So I think he's lost the one person on the board that people thought might make a difference. I think the trust in the club to make the right decisions isn't there anymore. I mean, if we get into the summer and the new chief executive comes out and goes, oh, we're going to be bold, we're going to be brave, no one's going to believe that. No one's going to believe that. So we go into the summer now and you look at the squad, we've got the 4 loanees that probably we're not going to re-sign for Berzorg, Earthy, Borges, Vitek. They all go back. Sykes goes, Bell goes.
Knight goes.
You're into your last season for Knight, Bird, McCrory, Williams. Not too worried about Williams, but there we go. So that's 10 players that are just walking out the club. What are you going to do? Are you going to invest all the money in doing it? Went to the fans forum back in September. There was a lot of positive there. We're going to be brave in January. We're going to be doing this in January. And then I had to go to the senior reds and hear Tinian massively row back on all of it. And Dickey signed. And he said, look, the captain signed. Fantastic. We haven't signed a single player since then. Haven't done any renewals, contract renewals. We can't agree anything. And I've no doubt that all of those players that are there now thinking during the course of the season whether to sign or re-sign, none of them are going to re-sign, Dave. None of them are going to re-sign because there's no ambition at the club. They're going to watch what Viner leaving, saying, I moved to Wrexham because this is a club that has ambition. Mehmeti the same. When were we ever the situation that we were losing our players to rivals in this division? Previously, we lost key players to Premiership teams, and you thought, right, okay, I understand that the wages, potential to play in the Premiership, and all the rest of it. I understand that. Now we're losing key players to teams in the same division as us because they look at our club and they see so little ambition that we're actually moving forward. There's nothing coming from the academy. We're having to buy players in to fill the under-21s in that situation. With perhaps, Billy O'Neill coming in from Bray Wanderers in the season as well, 17, 18-year-old. There's the academy's shot. There's nothing coming through. The first team is shot. I think Struber will get an offer from Bundesliga 2, a German club in the summer. And I think he'll go because he'll look at it and say, what's my budget for the summer?
Yeah.
Where is the budget for the summer? So the season tickets, I think there's always been that time where I thought, oh, surely, some of the football under Manning that just bored people to death. But last season we sold a lot on the basis of the fact that a lot of people were buying, potentially we might get Premiership football because they were thinking playoffs. So it was that late push and everybody bought the cheap season tickets for it. I think this year there'll be a drop-off. There'll be a drop-off, 2,000-3,000, I think, because people are just like, we're back to square one. It feels like we've gone back 3-4 years in terms of the team. And I'm not confident in the summer that we've actually got in place anybody by way of recruitment or any plans on how to replace these players that are going out the window.
And I think that's one of the issues is that going into the summer, people did believe, but right now they're being asked to commit to something that they're looking at the board, the recruitment team, Tinian specifically, and they just don't believe in them anymore. And they see them as charlatans. They see them taking shortcuts. And football's not cheap anymore. It's expensive across the board when you put the whole family in, and when you're being asked to commit to it and you see the club can't be bothered, it's a tough ask for people in the modern world. And that's the main issue for me. Now, David, taking a step back from one game at a time, what does Struber need to do over the next 10 games to win you back? What do you need to see?
Good question. What do I want to see? Well, we got 10 games.
And the same will come to you, Richard.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's been save for Portsmouth on the opening day of the year and then the Watford Cup win. Hull was a bright spot. We won at Blackburn, the stuff there. We've got 10 games to go. I would like to see half of them won. I'd like to see us get 5 more wins, which would put us on 65 points for the season. Typical Bristol City territory. It would secure a top half finish. I think the point is somebody's made on here that, yes, they have to go through the recruitment mangle for statistics. But to me, Struber, he's responsible for Vitek, Ela, and Horvat. Those three. A certain person who used to come on this podcast was trying to say recruitment brought in Horvat and brought it forward. Horvat is somebody that came here probably through Gerhard Struber. So if you look at the signings that he's made or that he's been involved in, then he's got my confidence in that respect. And, he knows German Bundesliga 2. There's rich pickings to be had in that part of Europe. Less so France, I think. Well, that's just a personal view. So what he needs to do is put in performances like we had in the first half against Coventry, which was decent. I said it was decent. Stop conceding sloppy goals. Difficult to do that when your key defenders aren't going to feature between now and the end of the season. But if he can win with 60-plus points, that's it. I think that, as Neil has said, he could be tempted to go elsewhere, and Richard has said he stays with clubs a number of weeks, right? But it's going to get sticky in the summer because what budget is he going to have? If you look at the background of the new chief executive who's come in, who was sat there on the board, bespectacled guy, looked more like Charles Hawtrey than a tough-minded chief exec that's going to sort the board out. He was being chaperoned by Doug Harmon, who's one of the other so-called directors. He's not a guy that is going to pull Tinian and Struber together. If you look at his background, the new chief exec, he's a sales guy. He's a commercial guy. He was between jobs when he came here. I did a bit of a deep dive on the last 3 or 4 years of his career. And yes, he did very well at Disney from 2013 to 2021 in a selling of sports rights role, right? His football experience is 1 year as commercial director at Southampton. He went back to the Jockey Club to be interim chief executive while they were looking for a chief executive who came in the summer. And then they moved him sideways into what appears to be a permanent role as chief executive of Jockey Club racecourses. And what did the new chief executive do? He went out and brought in somebody to do that job who'd worked for 10 years running racetracks, which, sorry, but Mr. Boss hasn't run racetracks. So he left the Jockey Club at the end of November, right? So that's Scudamore's appointment. I think I stand corrected here, but I always look in the director's box to see who's up there. I don't even think Scudamore was there yesterday. So no Lansdowns, no Tinian, no Scudamore, and the new chief executive looking, dare I say it, a little boy lost stood in the boardroom, stood there with Doug Harmon. He's not a guy that's going to galvanize people together. I'd love to be proved wrong. But to restore my faith in Struber, I just want to see half a dozen wins between now and the end of the season. And to be quite honest, I can easily see us losing the next 3. Or maybe a point against West. If we get more than 1 point from the next 3 games, that'll be doing some good. But I don't see it. I see defeat, and a draw.
Richard, what does he need to do to bring you back? From a few of your comments about his subs, I get the feeling that you're going off of him slightly. What does he need to do to pull you back in? And we've got someone coming to the stream, so I will add them.
Okay. We've got 5 problems, but there's 5 solutions. Okay. We are in the middle of a perfect storm, and those 5 problems have created the perfect storm. Number 1, we don't need to labour the point, poor recruitment. We all have an opinion on that, okay? Number 2, we've got journeymen in our squad. Morsey, Bergsog, Harry Cornick, McNally. And they are just 4 names that I've plucked out of the air. The pathway is blocked. We're not seeing that transition from the academy into the first team. There's no point signing kids from Bray Wanderers. We've got to grow our own wood. We've got to do that. We've got a technical director. Well, let's just say that many people have an opinion on him. Okay. The final problem we've got is we've got an owner who is disconnected from the fan base. You can't say supporters can ruin this club. You can't say that. He's clearly not prepared to cover recruitment. He wants to cover losses. I do have some sympathy for him. I'll be honest with you. I mean, if I'd shoveled £280 million into Bristol City since 2002, I think, was when he took over. And if you look at where we were when he joined, I think we were about 6th in the table. But that was in the 2nd division, the old 1st division. We're now 10th. We've risen 20 places. So each place that we've risen has cost him £14 million. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
One way of putting it.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Solutions. There's no point moaning about it. You've got to find a solution to the problem, haven't you?
Sure.
I think number 1, we've got to break this ridiculous Bristol sport empire. We're not Barcelona. We've got to break it. Because what none of us know, because we're not forensic accountants, is we don't know what costs are being offset onto Bristol City by other parts of Bristol sport. Okay?
Exactly.
And there's a reason for doing this, which is the sooner you break that, we know that if the club makes what it makes, it can spend what it can spend. So we've got to do that. We've got to fix the structure. We need to have an independent sporting director. The one that we've got is not fit for purpose. I do believe we're not looking in the right markets. I think Dave mentioned earlier, Bundesliga 2, totally agree. League 2, Belgian League, Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, Austria. These are all hunting grounds for Struber. We've got to reset the relationship with supporters. We need a fan advisory board.
We have one.
Well, we don't have one that is able to have open and fair communication with the club, and it's not on the fan advisory board. I don't believe the club are engaging with them.
The thing is with the fan advisory board, there is actually one, and if somebody from it is listening or can point in the direction, maybe there are some questions that can be had, because if someone like Richard is not available of such a board, doesn't that kind of tell a story in itself? And I'm not going to criticize things, because I believe a meeting even took place last week between them, but I don't think at this moment in time enough people know about it. But maybe you've hit a point there, Richard.
We don't
Matt,
know that.
are you there?
Could I just say the final point, which is we've got to accept the financial reality of our situation. There's been a lack of football strategy, not a lack of money. And that, I think, has got to be reset. Lansdowne is a businessman. He's not a football man. And we've got to reset ourselves with that.
Sure, I take that. Hello, Matt. Are you there? We have silence.
Dave,
We
can I
tried.
make a point in the meantime, just where we're waiting on Matt? The
Sure.
thing that really got me was not the interview that Lansdowne did with Ed Hadwin, because he was on the defensive and he was firing off and all the rest of it. It was the one he subsequently did in the TV offices with Leroy Rossignol afterwards. And he'd obviously come from that interview with Hadwin, and he felt more comfortable. He wasn't going to be asked a difficult question, so he was a bit more forthcoming. Candid. And he said, I really thought we were going to sell in the summer. I really thought that it was going to go through. And it didn't happen for some very, very minor things, but they were really important to me. Now, at what stage does Lansdowne actually recognise that these very, very minor things are holding the club back? Because otherwise that takeover would have taken place, according to Lansdowne. So what is these very minor things? Is it keeping his son involved? Is it keeping the Lansdowne name on the stand? Is it the Lansdowne family keeping hold of the freehold of the stadium? Whatever he considers to be he described them as very minor, but they're very important to me. So this is Lansdowne at the end of the day. I think Lansdowne he's got to recognise that his view of things is holding the club back, because a takeover doesn't collapse because of a very, very minor issue. Two sides normally compromise, don't they? And if you're willing to compromise in those situations, then you can make these things happen if it's for the good of the club. Now, it's very, very difficult to buy a club. We only have to look at Sheffield Wednesday, and they're a distressed sale at the moment, and we're not a distressed sale. And that's probably what's holding up any potential thing for us, because we're not a distressed, and Lansdowne's probably asking far too much money. But we are a really attractive option as a club, I would say, to investors. So we've been for sale for 4 or 5 years. It's like a house, isn't it? If you're for sale for 4 or 5 years and you haven't been sold, then you're either asking for too much money, or the terms of what you're asking for is incorrect. So what is the willingness of the Lansdowne family to actually sell this club at the moment? And I would argue it's not there. I don't think they want to sell this club. And partly, I think, personally, it's because they're fearful of the next person that comes in actually having success, and then their whole legacy not actually being shown for what it is. So you kind of that fear factor now of letting something go, somebody else coming in and riding on the back of this stadium that you built, the training facilities, and then having success, and everybody going, God, those years of the Lansdowne held us back.
You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. They're more afraid of someone else being successful than they've been. They have a selfish attitude, and they are not worthy of this football club. Matt, are you there? Second chance lucky. I think you've got an issue with your microphone because one is not showing. If you try and come in next week, we'll have you on. But at the moment, you don't have a microphone, I believe, which is why we can't hear you. And on that note, we're finished for today. People will be happy to know that the weather isn't the best in Tenerife. David, over to you to finish the show.
All right, well done, Dave. We'll be doing Leicester review at 9 o'clock on Wednesday, because it is being played on Tuesday night, and then, as per normal, we'll do our Middlesbrough review on Sunday morning at this time. But good to have Richard making his full debut, managing his minutes. He had a few minutes a couple of weeks ago. As I say, Neil's been sat with me this morning. We're going to go off and enjoy coffee at Leaf and Bean in Clevedon. Not in the office now. The office is gone. This is the work from home mode that you now find me in, and it's depressing time being a Bristol City fan at the moment. Really, what's the outcome going to be? Neil hit the nail on the head. We've all got opinions as to what should happen, but it's his train set at the end of the day. Mr. Lansdowne's train set. He was clearly rattled by those chants that came in the the Sheffield Wednesday game before he did that interview in Derby, and I don't think he's going to change. And as I say, back to the remainder of this season. There's some tough games coming up. I only hope that we get something from the next three, but I hold my doubts. Good to see Stuart Randall from All Things Sky Blue with a comment coming up on the text feed there that Doug King isn't a football man, he's a businessman, but he's got it right. And Doug King has achieved a lot more in a 5-year period than Steve Lansdowne has done in the 22 years he's had in charge. King has Coventry own their own stadium. I saw City play Coventry at Northampton. That was only 10 years ago. Let's not start going on about Bournemouth, Brentford and Brighton as well. They're all established in the top flight. But we are where we are. Everybody who's tuned in, thanks for watching us do it live. And if you're listening to it on Spotify,